There is a remarkable historical record buried deep inside the proceedings of a regional historical society published in 1894 that almost nobody talks about today. It is not a fringe pamphlet or an underground theory passed around alternative internet spaces. It was written by a trained observer, published through a legitimate institutional channel, and then quietly filed away into the archives where inconvenient discoveries often go to be forgotten. Inside that record, a group of Ojibwe elders described a physical historical civilization that built massive copper mines across the Great Lakes region thousands of years before Columbus, long before mainstream history credits any local society with that level of industrial capacity. They did not describe primitive, opportunistic pit digging. They described highly organized, large-scale extraction operations carried out by a people who understood copper as a crucial manufacturing raw material. They were a people who came from afar, worked the earth, and disappeared. The question the elders left sitting in that 1894 record remains unanswered to this day. Where did they go? To understand why this testimony matters, we have to look closely at the copper itself, because the physical material is something that cannot be argued away. The Upper Peninsula of Michigan sits on top of one of the most extraordinary mineral deposits in human history, native copper. This is not copper ore that requires advanced chemical smelting to extract from iron or sulfur. It is pure metallic copper sitting directly in the ground. It appears in the form of nuggets, sheets, and massive boulders weighing thousands of pounds, ready to be worked the moment someone picks it up. Geologists estimate that there were originally between 1.5 and 2 billion pounds of native copper spread across Lake Superior, Isle Royale, and the Keweenaw Peninsula. When American mining companies moved into the region in the 1840s during the famous copper rush, they made a shocking discovery. The copper was already gone. Vast, unimaginable quantities had already been systematically extracted. Mining engineers found ancient mining workings with pits plunging 40 to 60 feet into the earth, complete with drainage systems, wooden platforms, and thousands of stone hammers. In 1863, federal geologist Charles Whittlesey estimated that ancient miners had removed between 1.5 and 2 billion pounds of copper from the region before European contact. Radiocarbon dating of the wood supporting these ancient shafts later revealed that the heaviest mining occurred between 5,000 and 3,000 years ago. This reality posed an unanswerable question for archaeologists. Where did all that copper go? The documented archaeological record of pre-Columbian Native American copper use accounts for only a fraction of a percent of that volume, mostly consisting of ceremonial beads, small tools, and ornaments. Billions of pounds of industrial metal do not simply vanish into burial offerings. This is where the oral traditions of the Ojibwe nation bridge the gap. As the inheritors of the Great Lakes region, the Ojibwe lived on the exact lands where these ancient operations took place. The testimonies recorded in 1894 were not mythological creation myths or stories about supernatural spirits. They were sober accounts of a distinct, physical group of people who occupied the landscape before the Ojibwe established dominance. The elders referred to them by names like the Copper People, the Light-Skinned People, or the ones who came across the water. According to the elders, these visitors did not look like any tribal group from their genealogical memory. They were skilled, highly disciplined, and came with a singular focus: the red metal. They knew exactly where the deposits were, operated with massive logistical coordination, and when they were finished, they loaded the copper onto great vessels and sailed away back across the water. When we hold this oral testimony against modern archaeological mysteries, the implications are staggering. The European Bronze Age flourished between 3300 BCE and 1200 BCE. Because bronze is an alloy of copper and tin, European civilizations required copper on an unprecedented industrial scale, far exceeding what the known deposits of Europe, Britain, or Cyprus could provide during that era. For decades, archaeometallurgists have quietly wrestled with this massive deficit. Intriguingly, modern isotopic fingerprinting, which analyzes the distinct chemical signature of lead isotopes within metal, has shown that some Bronze Age European artifacts carry a signature matching Lake Superior copper with incredible precision. While the methodology remains a subject of intense academic debate, the underlying problem of the missing European copper source is undeniable. The convergence between the physical evidence in Michigan and the oral tradition of the Ojibwe becomes even more striking when looking at the specific mining techniques used. The Ojibwe elders explicitly noted that the ancient copper workers used fire in their operations. This aligns flawlessly with the physical archaeology of the sites. The ancient miners used a sophisticated technique known as fire setting. They built intense fires directly against the rock faces to heat the stone, then doused the hot rock with cold water. The resulting thermal shock fractured the stone, exposing the pure copper veins inside. Fire setting is not an intuitive, accidental discovery. It is a highly specialized engineering technology that was simultaneously being used in the ancient silver mines of Greece, the gold mines of Egypt, and the copper mines of Sinai. The fact that the physical evidence of fire-shattered stone and the independent oral tradition describe the exact same sophisticated process carries immense forensic weight. The 1894 documentation did not suffer a dramatic conspiratorial suppression, it simply suffered from institutional neglect. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the field of American archaeology was working hard to establish itself as a rigorous science. To distance itself from the wild fantasies of lost continents popular at the time, academia hardened its stance into a strict paradigm. Absolutely no significant transoceanic contact occurred between the Old World and the New World before Columbus. Any piece of evidence that challenged this timeline was quietly set aside or reinterpreted. However, the sheer mathematical scale of the Lake Superior mines forces us to reconsider. Even by conservative estimates, moving hundreds of thousands of pounds of copper annually requires an entire civilization. It demands advanced water management to keep deep pits from flooding, a reliable agricultural supply chain to feed thousands of workers, seasonal camp logistics, and transatlantic maritime navigation capable of crossing thousands of miles of open ocean to deliver raw cargo. The mine sites proved this civilization existed. We simply lack their written records, their cities, or their names, because their presence was strictly transactional and extractive. They came for the metal, they camped, they mined, and they left. As one Ojibwe elder beautifully summarized in the 1894 text, the copper people eventually took what they came for, and then the lake was quiet. They left behind a deeply transformed landscape and a powerful memory of an era when the shores of Lake Superior rang with the sound of fire, hammers, and the voices of people who had traveled across the world to claim what the earth was holding. The ancient pit mines are still there to be visited, the stone hammers sit in museums, and the copper they missed remains in the earth, a silent monument to a forgotten global network waiting for modern history to finally catch up.